The Emily Morgan Hotel has a long history. No one appears to have thought about constructing the current-day Emily Morgan site before the 19th century when the yard was still made of marble rock. From 1924 onward, that is. In 1920, San Antonio's first skyscraper, which was erected by builder J.M. Nix and architect Ralph Cameron, came into being. The duo put everything they had into the creation of this structure, which at the time was the city's tallest. They used Gothic Revival architecture to construct a 13-story tower. The bottom 3 floors and the top 3 floors were glazed with terracotta, while the middle 7 floors were composed of light-colored brick. Nix and Cameron's work drew attention because it was triangular. The building, located on what is known as Flat Corner in San Antonio, was inspired by New York's Flatiron Building from the 1800s. During that time, big cosmopolitan cities in North America all had similarly styled triangular buildings, including San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, and Toronto. Because San Antonio has long been considered one of the USA's most unique cities, it was not going to be left behind. No other skyscraper in San Antonio was in the same league as the first one. The Medical Arts Building was conceived to be the city's first medical arts building. The building's most visible feature, then and now, were its terracotta gargoyles. Nix and Cameron must have had a great deal of fun designing the gargoyles, which depicted various medical maladies. Some glared at the toothache plague with mouths full of broken teeth, while others clutched their stomachs in pain. Nothing can compare to the Emily Morgan Hotel's rows of Gothic gargoyles glaring down at you as you arrive. The Medical Arts Building was completed in 1926, and it was the first doctor's office in the entire city. Nearly 100 doctors and office spaces for 400 people were accommodated. According to legend, the hospital operated on the top floors because the windows could be opened to help alleviate the awful odor. On the other hand, the morgue was located in the basement. Doctors' offices were situated on the ground level, and the finest working hospital in the city was located there. Despite serving as a medical facility for the next 50 or so years, Medical Arts Building was converted into an office building in 1976. Less than 10 years after that, in 1984, the Emily Morgan Hotel became the hotel. The Emily Morgan Hotel opened in 1984 and took on the name of one of San Antonio's most well-known personages, Emily Morgan. In the early 19th century, a woman of mixed race was commonly an indentured servant for 1 to 3 years. Born Emily D. West in 1815, Emily West was a free person of color who came from New Haven, Connecticut. As was also customary, Emily took James Morgan's surname in 1835, when she was contracted to him as a housekeeper at Morgan's Point, Texas, a hotel owned by the New Washington Association. Emily wished things would go smoothly, but they certainly did not. General Santa Anna, the most renowned Mexican general of all time, kidnapped Emily and some of her colleagues on April 16, 1836, barely a few months into their contractual agreement. After the Alamo's legendary fall 6 weeks before, Santa Anna collected the kidnapped lot of them and marched them to the Mexican Army camp at Buffalo Bayou, where Houston is today. The Mexican Army was recharging and regrouping. Sam Houston's troops were next on the agenda. It's slightly hard to picture General Santa Anna frowning in concern as the battle for Texan independence loomed overhead, even though he ran one of the best armies of his day and age. Squaring off with Sam Houston would simply be another revolt on Santa Anna's part. However, no one could have predicted how the showdown, known as the Battle of San Jacinto, would turn out. On the morning Houston and his men arrived at Buffalo Bayou, General Santa Anna was otherwise occupied. He developed a fixation on Emily Morgan, and on the morning of the battle, he invited her into his tent for entertainment. Some believe that Emily Morgan danced for the fierce general, while others believe that she might have drugged him with a sedative that left him immobile for battle. Others, on the other hand, maintain that Emily Morgan was so talented that the Texans won their independence in only 18 minutes. After the Texans had won the bloody fray, General Santa Anna was discovered huddling under a tree in his dressing gown and slippers. All over the Texan camp, people immediately began talking that Santa Anna had tried to escape the fray by cross-dressing as a woman. According to William Ballard in 1842, the Battle of San Jacinto may have been lost by the Mexicans because Colonel Morgan's mulatto daughter, who was closeted in his tent with Santa Anna, delayed him from crying out, "The enemy! The enemy! They come," so long that the order could not be restored immediately again. Even though the battle was won by the Texans, Emily Morgan was unable to return home to New York. During her previous kidnapping, she had lost all her papers, including her passport, which declared her to be a liberated individual. Without proper papers, she was unable to travel, and Major Isaac Moreland, commander of the Texas forces at Galveston, had to vouch for her. As soon as Moreland described her, she departed for New York in March of 1837. During the mid-19th century, "The Yellow Rose of Texas" was a song that once again brought attention to Emily Morgan's role in the Texas Revolution. The fact that the song and the woman were not connected has since been disproved, but many still sing the hymn and believe that the lyrics refer to Emily Morgan. "The Yellow Rose of Texas beat the Tennessee bells," which is the final line of the chorus. The Emily Morgan Hotel underwent a partial renovation in 1997 after becoming the Emily Morgan Hotel, then garnered multimillionaire sums from 2001 to 2002. As a result, the hotel was able to boast 177 rooms and 24 suites, and even a champagne bubble hot tub in one of the beautiful suites, which looks down on the street many stories below. In 2012, the Emily Morgan was purchased by the Hilton family, who own DoubleTree by Hilton. Despite all the interior alterations throughout the years, two things have remained the same. A clock was supposed to be installed in the blank space between the 14th floor and the observation tower, but it never was. There is no real 14th floor, because the 13th floor of the Emily Morgan Hotel is the real 14th floor. Many people are slightly confused, so don't worry if you are. Across the country and around the world, many public facilities have opted not to have a 13th floor because superstition prevents it. The 14th floor is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the 12th floor in the elevator, but at the Emily Morgan Hotel, they've gone one step further by eliminating room 1408. Of course, room 1407 is right next to room 1409, and the numbers add up to 13 because they have eliminated room 1408. Many owners of large-scale corporations like hotels are superstitious, so they change the 13th and 14th floors to avoid any bad luck that might be coming their way. In addition, they often change the floors to settle the nerves of superstitious guests who are unwilling to stay on the 13th floor, which they often dread. Despite the fact that the 13th floor has been changed to the 14th floor, such phenomena have not been dissuaded. The Emily Morgan Hotel, a historic structure, is said to be haunted on every level. Since it was a fully functioning medical facility in the past, nothing less should be expected. It should come as no shock that the Emily Morgan Hotel is considered one of Texas' most haunted destinations. According to sales manager William Taylor, the 7th, 9th, and 14th floors as well as the basement are said to be among the most haunted areas. It is advisable to book the 7th floor if you wish to encounter some ghosts. The Emily Morgan Hotel and Museum contains a variety of haunted locations, with most of them being from the psychiatric ward, operating room, reception area, and morgue, which were on the very same floors. Patients have described unusual events occurring on these floors. While the lingering heavy scent of medicine settles in your nostrils, you may feel something cool brushing against you. On the 14th floor, the scent is so overwhelming that it is almost impossible to breathe. The Emily Morgan Hotel's 14th level is said to have an odor reminiscent of a hospital, and once the Medical Arts Building's waiting area, it seems that this floor has been imbued with residual surgical energy. Guests have described discovering a scene from a hospital waiting area right inside the hall when they opened the door. Their eyes widened, and their fingers gripped the doorknob as they tried to grasp what they were seeing, which they grasped to be nearly tangible. In an attempt to organize their chaotic thoughts, they closed the door. After taking a deep breath in their guest room, they opened the door again. Ghostly images always disappear by the time they take a second look into the corridor, and memories of the past are forgotten by the living after seeing them. No less haunted than the 14th floor, the 12th floor once operated as a medical facility. Guests staying on this floor have been awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of their bathroom doors opening and shutting on their own. A quiet drip 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 that can drive even the sanest person crazy is heard late at night as guests get out of bed. They are pulled to the bathroom and find that the faucets are open, but once they enter the bathroom everything goes back to normal. Then everything goes back to normal again. A rubber stopper seems to have been put in because the water stops flowing. Everything is out of the ordinary, even though things are. Those who have witnessed the flashing lights have also seen nurses pushing rickety gurneys down the hallways. Those who have seen apparitions see nurses walking down the hallways pushing rickety gurneys, then vanish as if they never were there. It's said that the Emily Morgan swimming pool was built with the medical center's stainless steel operating tables. We can possibly attribute many of the hotel's hauntings to ghostly attachment, in which spirits are either unable or unwilling to leave either a location or an object that was important to them at the time of their death. Could Emily Morgan Hotel be home to so many ghosts because some of the medical equipment still remains there? There are not many, if any, places where you can ride an elevator as much as at the Emily Morgan. The elevators at this San Antonio hotel are known for going up and down without anyone on them. When a guest does get on, it's akin to signing up for an adventure. The elevator will pass the requested floor without stopping, as though the guest had never pressed the desired floor button. At other times, the elevator doors will become stuck and remain closed for hours, locking people inside until help arrives. Strange paranormal phenomena frequently cause elevator operators to make unlisted phone calls to the front desk, even though no one is inside at the time. The creepiest thing about the elevators is that they used to bring guests all the way down to the morgue level. Today, no one except hotel employees is permitted to enter the basement. Even for employees, the basement is not a popular spot. Employees who worked downstairs for years reported seeing glowing orbs dancing in the air as well as hearing disembodied voices with no known source. They also experienced strange transpirings. Despite the horrible odor of burning human flesh, nothing compares to it. There were undoubtedly hundreds of dead who were either embalmed or autopsied in the Emily Morgan's basement, and many of them remain there to this day. Employees rush through their duties in the Emily Morgan's basement to escape the oppressive air, which has been said to have a distinct odor. Despite the fact that each floor is said to have its own distinct odor, no one wants to stay in the basement for long. According to Emily Morgan Hotel staff, the 7th floor may be haunted by a ghostly bride. Who she is and why she might remain on the earthly plane are questions for which we both have no answers, but the 7th floor is reportedly one of the most haunted areas of the entire 13-story building. Many guests are frightened by an unearthly voice that carries through the dead of night, waking sleeping guests. The front desk attendants are always at a loss for words other than to apologize for a ghost that they think might be responsible. It's far too much for many to handle. Those same apparitions appear along the living when the living peer into mirrors to check their reflection. Apparitions have been seen dashing through the rooms, disappearing right into the wall itself. Those playful spirits never cause any damage, but even so, reports of guests leaving the Emily Morgan Hotel in the middle of the night or requesting to switch rooms are not uncommon. It just got named the world's 3rd most haunted hotel. Are you looking for a hotel in San Antonio with a paranormal twist? If so, the haunted Emily Morgan Hotel is the place for you. Management has provided a shuttle service to bring you to all local attractions, as well as a cozy library, an outdoor heated pool that may or may not have been constructed out of operating tables, and other amenities to ensure a pleasant stay. Furthermore, the Emily Morgan is pet-friendly, and you know what they say about animals and the paranormal? Your four-legged friend is likely to know what ghostly activities are before you do. Make sure you check if it's the living or the dead if you hear the shark bark from your pup and the covers lift up, because at the Emily Morgan, the ghosts like to make themselves at home just as much as you do.